Hi, everybody. Welcome to my homestead and welcome to my channel. My name is Jared. I got an email from Sue Baldock. The subject line, 25th March, Cleansing of the Temple, Church Easter Study Guide. And I was like, what? And so I looked at the email, Easter Study Plan, and then she puts a link for it. Hi, Jared. Keep up the good work. Love to watch your videos. So I just watched your video, Jerusalem Under Siege, and also about Purim on the 25th of March, and Kirtland Temple opened on that day when I came across the church post about Easter week study guide. On March 25th, it covers, quote unquote, cleansing of the temple. Maybe a day to watch. Exciting and momentous things are coming, Sue Baldock. I totally agree. So let's take a look at this. Before we do, here's the Flood the Earth Challenge. I haven't updated it since the last video, but in case you missed that, we have 2 new people meeting with the missionaries, which is amazing. That brings us to 134 total, and 2 for the month of March. Starting off the month really good in many different ways. And then we have a total of 8,330 copies of the Book of Mormon that have been shared. We're trying to get to 10,000, and then 913 people that have participated in the channel, trying to get to 1,000 there. And remember, the channel goal is to try and share at least 10 for each of us individually. So try and do that if you haven't. And good job, everybody. Okay, so where do you find this? I hadn't heard about this Easter study guide. And so I went to the link and then kind of saw where they had it on the website. And it's under, you go to libraries, and then you go to Gospel Library, and then you go, well, let me just double check that. Gospel Library. Yeah, then you go to Jesus Christ. And then it's the first thing currently in that section, Easter Study Plan. And then it has Easter videos, and then it has all the other things under the Jesus Christ section of the church website. So you go to the Easter Study Plan, and I wanted to read the about part because I had not heard about this. Let me know if you already knew about this. I didn't. This study plan provides daily inspiration to help you strengthen your faith in Jesus Christ this Easter season. The plan includes accounts from the Savior's mortal ministry in the land of Israel, as well as his ministry in the ancient Americas after his resurrection. You may decide if one or both of these approaches would enhance your worship this Easter season. President Russell M. Nelson said, the more we know about the Savior's ministry and mission, the more we understand his doctrine and what he did for us, the more we know that he can provide the power that we need for our lives. End quote. Although the exact days of the week on each specific scriptural events took place, although the exact days of the week on which specific scriptural events took place are sometimes unknown, this plan's daily devotional schedule will help focus your thoughts on events surrounding the atonement and resurrection of Jesus Christ. As you study, you'll discover how the atonement and teachings of Jesus Christ apply to your life. And then, of course, notice that it has an image from the Book of Mormon video series with Christ coming to the Americas. It talks about that next. The resurrected Savior's visit to the people of ancient America, recounted in 3rd Nephi as part of the glorious Easter message. Elder Gary E. Stevenson invited us to study this account as part of our Easter experience. He taught, we hope to make these chapters in 3rd Nephi as much a part of our Easter tradition as Luke 2, or chapter 2, is of our Christmas tradition. The Book of Mormon shares the greatest Easter story ever told. Let it not be the greatest Easter story never told. I invite you to look at the Book of Mormon in a new light and consider the profound witness it bears of the reality of the risen Christ. Okay, so we'll end it there. So interesting that they're wanting us to make sure not to leave out the Book of Mormon and him coming to the Americas, that's part of the Easter story too. So that's the about, and then it has the study plan, and it has for this year each day, I guess, of the week. This goes from March 24th until March 31st, Easter Sunday. And on the 25th, the thing to study for that day is cleansing the temple. So that's really interesting. During Jesus' time in Jerusalem, he visited the temple. There, inside his father's holy house, Jesus saw various merchants doing business. He was appalled to see a sacred place of worship being desecrated and turned into a quote-unquote den of thieves. Speaking with unmistakable authority, he commanded the merchants and money changers to leave. Jesus Christ invites us to worship and learn of him in modern day temples. And then it has a quote from President Nelson. And so this is kind of fitting, isn't it? And this isn't saying anything bad about the community of Christ, but you know, the temple has not been in our hands for the majority of this dispensation. And I don't know the whole history of it under the community of Christ, but I do know that they did tours that you had to pay for to go and experience the Kirtland Temple. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but this temple is part of our church. It always has been, even though they legally owned it for that time. That doesn't supersede the Lord in how he views the Kirtland Temple. And it has not been an operating temple this entire time, but I think that it's still considered the house of the Lord. And someday, probably in the millennium, it'll be dedicated as an operating temple again, with a different mission from the temples that we currently use. I keep saying that, but just remember, not all temples have to be the type of temples that we have with celestial rooms and baptistries and ordinance rooms and sealing rooms. When we study about the New Jerusalem, there were going to be 24 temples and they all had different functions. And I think that's probably going to be standard in the millennium. I think there's going to be lots of different types of temples that are built during that time. And so whenever that time comes, I think the Kirtland Temple could be one of those for the city of Kirtland. I wouldn't be surprised if Kirtland eventually in the millennium becomes something similar to New Jerusalem, you know, just a very important city. And probably after the pattern of New Jerusalem and how that was supposed to be built. So anyway, you know, we have this thing where we've taken this back. It's kind of like Christ when he came to cleanse the temple. In a sense, he took it back from people that weren't supposed to be there or doing what they were doing at the temple. There's a pretty obvious parallel. I don't know if the church planned it like this, where they wanted it to open in coordination with what we were supposed to be studying that day, the cleansing of the temple, but it could be. Again, let's look at the official statement. Responsibility and ownership of sacred sites and historic documents transferred to Church of Jesus Christ, where it talks about the news. And it says here, the Kirtland Temple will remain an historic building. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints plans to reopen it on the 25th of March, 2024 for public tours at no charge. Now, I understand the community of Christ, they don't have nearly as much money as we have and probably never have. And things don't just happen magically. You know, the temple doesn't just maintain itself. So they have to have some way to raise funds to maintain the temple, or that's what they had to do. And so it makes sense. But now I think things have been lifted in a higher, holier way. The temple is now back in our possession, and you're not going to have to pay money to visit this house of the Lord. Does that make sense? So in that way, it's like the temple has been cleansed. It's ours again. What was there before has been driven out, or we took it back, and there's no longer going to be money exchanged in the temple. So I think that's pretty fitting. And then it does happen that the 25th is going to be on a Monday, so that's probably the reason why they picked that day, just to, you know, start that week. Monday's a day when things start because it's the start of the week. So it's probably nothing more than that, but maybe not. I don't know. It all goes together really well with what we just talked about with cleansing the temple. In a previous video, we talked about the fact that it's going to be Shushan Purim, which is where for the holiday of Purim, if you're in Jerusalem or in a walled city, then there's an extension of the celebration of Purim And that's gonna this year happens to be on the day that the Kirtland Temple is gonna open to the public under the ownership of our church. So, well, and that was the other thing. In case you didn't see that video, just in a nutshell, the story of Purim is essentially the story of the Jews being saved um, because of Esther, because she was a Jew, and you had Haman who was plotting to kill all the Jews. But what ended up happening is the pit that he was digging for the Jews ended up being the pit that he himself fell into. And his position of authority as a prime minister in under the king in Persia was given to Mordecai, the cousin of Esther. So a transfer of power from an evil worldly source to its proper well, I mean, not that you get what I'm saying. It's like a foreshadowing. There's like a parallel how at the time of the second coming, there's going to be a transfer of power to where it belongs, and the saints are going to be saved, and so are the Jews. So, again, looking at the Kirtland Temple, there's been a transfer of power here, a transfer of ownership over the Kirtland Temple, and now it's where it should be. So, and I guess the last thing that I want to touch on is, and I kind of already talked about this in a previous video, but I feel like this whole thing with the Kirtland Temple is a very good symbol of the second coming itself. The Kirtland Temple has been around. I mean, it's the first temple of this dispensation. And for only a very small percentage of this dispensation did we have possession of it during the time that Joseph Smith was still alive. But most of the time, it's been out of our hands, and I think most members of the church assumed that at some point in the future we would have it again. But, it was really hard to picture when that would be, just because it seems so unlikely. It seemed like, the community, well, before the RLDS and then later the Community of Christ, when they changed their name, would just keep a tight grip on the temple, and just the status quo would probably continue for just such a long time, right? Just like how we know that the second coming is on its way, and we see all the signs. Well, not everybody, of course, but if you're watching this channel, it's likely that you see the signs and you know that the time is approaching. And it's something that we've waited for and anticipated our whole lives. And it feels like it's taking forever. And it's like at any given time, on any given day, if you ask yourself, do you think the second coming is happening tomorrow? You'll probably say no. Or if we experience a general conference and you ask, is this the last general conference? Most people, even you and me, would probably say no. Or, like to think that it's the last general conference, but in our hearts feel like, no, we're still going to have to wait a while. And so you have this like parallel between us waiting for the second coming as well as us waiting for the Kirtland Temple to be purchased by the church. And in the case of the Kirtland Temple, there were things going on behind the scenes that we did not know about. I had no idea that, and who did, that the church has been talking with the Community of Christ since 2021. So here we are 3 years later. Like, there's been this process going on in the background for 3 years, and nobody was the wiser. And then just one day, just abruptly out of the blue, even though some of us had reason to suspect that there would be a day like this, because we kind of put the pieces together and we're like, Community of Christ is not doing well financially. They're probably thinking about selling the Kirtland Temple if they want to stay afloat. It made sense, but we didn't know when. But it turned out just one day, all of a sudden, bam, we got the news that the church had purchased the Kirtland Temple. And I think it's the same thing with the second coming. I think there's a lot of things that have been going on unbeknownst to you and me, namely Adam on Diamond, like sessions where you would actually be present. I think most likely church leadership has already participated in that. That's just my guess. It's a guess. And if not that, then other things. But I think that before we know it, some big thing is going to happen, whether it's us being quickened or translated or going to Adam on Diamond, whatever. and it's going to be time just one day. And I hope that we're ready at that time. That's the whole parable of the 10 virgins. The ones that are wise are the ones that are prepared for whatever that event is, and they're let into the wedding. So I think that we should use this very real example of the Kirtland Temple suddenly and unexpectedly coming back to the church. We should use this as a real an object lesson for the second coming. And maybe, you know, I think that this is a sign of the times. I think that it's things being restored to their proper place and being brought back. And this may be a little foreshadowing of the second coming itself for the reasons that I just said. So anyway, interesting things. Again, thank you, Sue, for sending the email and pointing this out. I don't think I would have seen this. Very, very interesting. Cleansing of the temple. Okay, well, that's going to be it for this one. If you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe, like this video if you liked it. Leave your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. Also, make sure to share it, and I'll talk to you guys later.